I've opened up my heart. I'm at the start. I save the world.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. A special shout out now for all of those of you who are watching this as a prepared video on one of our video channels. So we upload all of my videos on YouTube, but also on BitChute and on Rumble. So please subscribe to whatever channel you are watching this on, and also hit that like button. Punch that like button, because the more people who like a particular video, the more exposure it will get. And we want these videos to be watched and listened to by anybody who would benefit from them. So please do that. That will help us out. I'm Reverend Tony Ponticello. I am the Miracles Minister with the Free Scholar. Not too many of us. I was guided to wear that about 5 years ago. So it's been quite a journey. I talk about that from time to time. Title of my talk today: what do miracles have to do with the price of eggs? Okay. This is sort of a takeoff on the old expression, what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China? So maybe you know that expression, maybe you don't. It's an expression, it's something you would say when you think somebody's really just said something really irrelevant. So you're having a discussion, somebody says something, and it just doesn't seem to be pertinent to the discussion you are having. You may say, what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China? So I thought of that today, and of course I was thinking about that because the price of eggs is a current news item and something that a lot of people are talking about. There's a lot of talk in the world right now, in our societies, about inflation, about the declining purchasing power of the dollar, if you're in the USA. I guess that would be Canada too, because they call their currency a dollar as well. But whatever currency is in the country that you are in, I'm sure everybody is dealing with the same issue. It doesn't seem to buy as much as it used to. And in the United States, especially, one of the things that it doesn't seem to buy as much of are eggs, because suddenly the cost of eggs has jumped up. And there's a lot of reason for this, but probably one of the big reasons is because the U.S., in its wonderful wisdom, slaughtered millions of chickens because of the scare of bird flu. And so, yeah, of course, we have egg shortages because we don't have the chickens laying the eggs. So people are talking about the high cost of eggs, or even more common maybe is eggs. I can't find any eggs. So what does this all have to do with miracles? Well, I think it has a lot to do with miracles, actually. One, it's all about scarcity of one form or another. And of course, the miracles talks a lot about that. But we have to learn that actually everything in the world is relatable to A Course in Miracles. I mean, it's all part of our life. It's all part of thoughts in our minds. So there aren't any things that A Course in Miracles does not relate to. Course in Miracles says the progress of a teacher of God may be slow or rapid, depending on whether he recognizes the atonement's inclusiveness or for a time excludes some problem areas from it. So obviously, this is telling us not to exclude any problem areas of our lives from miracles, from atonement. And, you know, the price of eggs, the scarcity of eggs themselves is a problem. And that's as applicable to atonement as anything else. There's this illusion of high, lofty ideals, that A Course in Miracles is talking about high, lofty ideals. And of course it does, but it is also a very practical course, and we need to bring our miracle healing ability into the day-to-day. We have to really get that there are no problem areas of our lives that we should be excluding from this technology, from this philosophy. In another place, it says something similar. It says, for a teaching assignment such as this, the Holy Spirit must use everything in this world for your release. So the Holy Spirit uses everything in the world. The Holy Spirit isn't just talking about high, lofty thoughts. The Holy Spirit is talking to us about everything. Everything that disturbs our peace in any way, shape, or form is a topic that the Holy Spirit will use. Nothing should be excluded, and nothing should be excluded because we think it's mundane, or nothing should be excluded because it seems to be disturbing, or maybe we perceive it to be irrelevant. Um, as a lot of you know, I am one of the admins for the largest and most active A Course in Miracles group on Facebook. I've been an admin there for 9 years. I'm not the senior admin. I'm not the one who created the group, and this group is not a function of the Community Miracle Center. But I have been an admin of it for 9 years, and we just clicked over 51,400 members. With a lot of members. No other group, A Course in Miracles group on Facebook, is even close to us in the number of members. There's a couple that have 30,000, and that's the closest. But a lot of people who participate in that group criticize us, and we get a lot of flack, the admins, that there is a lack of decorum on the group, or there's a lack of guidelines, and there's a lack of rules, and there's a lack of enforcement for the rules that we do have. We got a lot of the admins get a lot of criticism. A lot of people actually attack us or harshly criticize us. They perceive a lack. They perceive a scarcity. And I always perceive the group as a real free speech platform. So we don't restrict speech as long as the posts and the comments are relating to A Course in Miracles, then there are no off-limit topics on this group. And I've been a large part of really championing that and promoting that and being in agreement with that for the woman who actually created the group. And I have seen that group grow from 6,000 to now 51,400 in the 9 years that I've been participating with it. It wasn't the largest A Course in Miracles group when we started, but it is the largest one now, and definitely the most active because I'm a member of all the other groups. And I'm really, I can say I'm kind of proud of that. But I don't perceive the group as lacking the way some others perceive it. I perceive it as really abundant. Look at all these members. Look at all these engagements. And people will say, yeah, of course you can have engagement if you let people talk about politics. And I said, well, they're not talking about politics. They're talking about A Course in Miracles and how it relates to politics. So we have that discussion a lot, and just depends. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to see scarcity, or are you going to see abundance? And I'm choosing to see abundance. I'm choosing to see it as a free speech platform. Free speech is a big issue in the world right now. I thought it was just a big issue in the United States, but now I really see that it's a huge issue all over the world. I talked about this a few years ago when we started having videos of ours pulled off of Facebook, or I'm sorry, pulled off of YouTube, because we would say something, somebody would say something that YouTube decided was not in the greater community's interest. And I'd like to say that this happened just a few years ago, but actually just a couple of months ago, we had a Sunday gathering pulled off of Facebook, and it wasn't because of anything that the speaker said. It was because of something one of the participants said during the discussion. Reverend Rudy said something that YouTube decided was not acceptable, and so they pulled the whole video. So free speech is a big deal. And free speech is abundant speech. And free speech is speech that isn't lacking. And it may have a lot of things that you don't like, but that's the whole essence of free speech. And I think there's something really healthy and healing and abundant about free speech. Our Vice President, J.D. Vance, spoke in Munich last week, and it was the most amazing speech I think I've ever heard a U.S. president or vice president give a group of other international leaders. And he talked a lot about free speech, and he talked a lot about how Western democracies were moving away from free speech. And people said he scolded the European leaders. I don't really see that he scolded them, but he definitely made them aware that if you're going to be partners with the U.S., you have to embrace democratic values and democratic values of freedom and democratic values of allowing people to say what is on their mind and talk about their ideas. So I saluted it. I actually watched that speech twice. So if you're interested, that tweaks your interest. I recommend you find it on. You can find it on YouTube. J.D. Vance speaking at Munich, talking about free speech. Um, I was happy about that. I think the more speech that we have, the more varying opinions that we allow, the more freedom there is, the healthier there is, and the more abundant we are. That to me is a demonstration of abundance, the abundance of ideas. It is not scarcity. Okay, let's get back to the price of eggs. Okay, so the price of eggs, and everybody being concerned about it, is about the scarcity of money. Okay, the scarcity of money. Eggs cost a lot. Money, is always perceived by the ego world as limited, and not money, even just like, where the hell are the eggs? You go to stores and there aren't any eggs. I just had to have an image of eggs, so indulge me. Eggs! I love them, but where are they? Uh, they were hard to find this week. And I love it that we're thinking about eggs and the price of eggs. Okay. So Course in Miracles says, and this is miracle principle number 42. Wholeness is the perceptual content of miracles. It thus corrects or atones for the faulty perception of lack anywhere. So scarcity is a perception of lack. And what it's just told us here in miracle principle number 42, that all perceptions of lack are faulty. They're all broken. And that we have to heal that brokenness. We have to put that perception back together, and we do that through remembering wholeness. So as I had my egg challenge this week, I just started thinking about my whole egg experience throughout my whole life. And eggs are significant for me. First of all, I want to tell you that I like eggs. I love eggs. I eat them. I cook them in a whole variety of ways. And I have a special attachment to eggs because it was the very first thing as a child that I learned to cook by myself. My mother taught me how to cook eggs. And I was quite young. I try to really remember how old I was. Was I 9, 10, something like that? I was kind of old to be standing at a gas stove, turning on the gas, unsupervised, and cooking eggs. But my mother thought I could handle it, and she taught me how to use the cast iron skillet and, how to put butter in it or olive oil. I think we used olive oil, how to put olive oil in the cast iron skillet and get the eggs out of the refrigerator. And we always had eggs. It was one of the things we always had. And I could make this hot, wonderful, delicious thing. And I loved it. And I loved that my mother had enough trust in me to teach me how to do that and feel like I could do that on my own. I didn't have to ask if, can I cook an egg? If I felt like I was hungry and I wanted to eat an egg, I could just go do it. I didn't need any more permission than the blanket permission that she had already given me. And I've talked about this before. I remember that time in my life when you didn't think about if you could eat something or should you eat something. You ate when you were hungry, and you ate what you thought was going to taste good at that time. We could eat pretty much anything we wanted if it was available, if we were hungry, and if we thought that thing was going to taste good. Those were the only criteria: availability, hunger, and how's it going to taste. And the idea that there were some foods that were healthy and some that were not was not introduced till later. And, I really see that now, as some idea of scarcity and vulnerability that we've accepted. And I am very conscious of the stuff that I eat now, but I do find it amusing every once in a while to think about it and to remember those days when we could eat anything we wanted to. And I was fascinated with cooking eggs, I mean, because it was this new thing to me. And I'd put the oil or the butter in the pan and you'd crack the egg. And, when you put the egg first in the pan, the gelatinous albumin of the egg around the yolk is clear and viscous, but then it slowly turns solid and white. And I just used to watch it do that. And I learned how to put a little salt and pepper on the egg. And I got very skilled at using the spatula, turning the egg over, hopefully without breaking the yolk. I was always a little disappointed if I broke the yolk because every once in a while you do break a yolk. And then I would just take it to wherever, the living room or my bedroom, and eat that egg. And it just felt like freedom for me. I didn't have to depend on my mother to prepare hot, delicious food for me. And that was abundant. That certainly wasn't scarce. And I loved it. And maybe that's why I still love eggs. I don't know. I like eggs. My current supplier of eggs is Costco. Costco's a big box store here that we have in the USA. I don't know if that, maybe it's just the West Coast. No, I think it's all over. And I usually buy eggs at Costco, and I needed eggs. And I went to Costco last week, and they had no eggs. And I thought, what do you mean they don't have any eggs? I'd heard about eggs being expensive, but Costco has racks and racks and racks of eggs. So I was a little surprised that Costco didn't have eggs. And then I realized that it wasn't really likely because there was a scarcity of eggs. It was more likely because people were hoarding eggs. Um, and hoarding is when you buy more of what you want and more than you usually buy because you're afraid there's going to be a lack later. So it's like defensive buying. You buy something defensively, not because you really need it, because you really want it, because you're too afraid it's not going to be there later. And of course, you remember, I'm sure many people remember that at the beginning of the pandemic, this is what people did with toilet paper. and, uh, and I remember going to Costco and not being able to get toilet paper either, because all of a sudden they had pallets and pallets of toilet paper, and all of a sudden it was all gone. So it's really kind of interesting, and this relates to the reading that Reverend Diane read, the very first sentence, that the fear of there not being enough causes this defensive buying, which then causes the scarcity that people are afraid of. And in the reading she read is this line: it is essential to realize that all defenses do what they would defend. And that's what happens. So people being afraid of scarce eggs buy more eggs than they would usually buy, and then eggs actually do become scarce. And, while this is obvious in this situation, what I really get is that it's actually what's always going on, except sometimes it's not so obvious. And this is true with a lot of economic theory that part of the problem with money is that people hoard money. They hoard money because they don't think they're going to have money later. And so they want to make sure they save a certain amount of money. And if they start saving more money than they would usually save, it creates less money in the money supply. And then there's inflation and recession. And, it's all hooked into the money cycle. And so then it actually creates the thing that it's afraid will happen by functioning out of scarcity. And it's all faulty. as A Course in Miracles says. All of this stuff these are broken perceptions. They're not the perception we should be having. It's not the perception Holy Spirit wants us to have. And it's a perception that ends up causing the very problems that it's trying to alleviate. Faulty is an interesting word. I thought about looking up the definition of it, and then actually what I found were all the synonyms for faulty. I thought it would be more fun to go through the synonyms. So remember, Course in Miracles telling us that any perception of lack is faulty. And faulty also means, or is synonymous with, malfunctioning, broken, damaged, defective, not working, not functioning, in disrepair, out of order, out of commission, inoperative, unsound, unusable, useless. So any perception of lack that we have are all of those things. Damaged, defective, useless, not working. We have to let them go. In the greater context, that reading that Reverend Diane read was about ideas of lack that we have in relationship. And we do defensive things like hoarding with our relationships too. So we get the relation, we hoard it. And, we bring it close, we don't share it. And somehow we think that's going to heal us from this idea or defend us from this perception of lack. And all it really does is perpetuate the lack. And then we feel lack in the midst of relationship, and that's usually pretty depressing. Also in that reading is this, and it talks about how we romanticize the lack. And it says all sorts of fanciful and fragmented illusions of love, set with dreams of sacrifice and self-aggrandizement and interlaced with gilded threads of self-destruction. All about romanticizing lack, all about romanticizing scarcity. We think relationship is scarce. And A Course in Miracles wants us to truly break up that idea. Relationship is not scarce. In one place it says, look around you. Your brothers and sisters are everywhere. Your brothers and sisters are everywhere. There's relationships everywhere. Every Sunday we come here and we relate to each other. We have relationship right here. There is no scarcity. And of course, I reminded myself of that when I was in Costco and annoyed that they had no eggs. And so I said, I'll just go to the grocery store. So I went to the big grocery store, and I eventually found eggs at the large supermarket, a Safeway, that's not too far from where I live. And I never even looked at the price. I got my usual carton of 18. When I buy them at Safeway, I buy a carton of 18. So I got my 18, didn't look at the price. I figured, whatever it is, I don't care. I'm going to pay it because I love eggs. And I'm not going to be in lack about eggs. My mother never was, and I'm not going to be either. So right before the sermon here, I looked up the price because I had the receipt. So they were $13.99 for 18 eggs, which means they were 78 cents a piece. So this is what everybody is getting upset about, paying 78 cents for an egg. I think they're a bargain. They would be a bargain at twice the price, as they say. So as a young boy, my mother bought into an idea of abundance, at abundance maturity and safety that her young son had, that he could handle getting an iron skillet down, standing in front of the gas stove, even unsupervised, that he could handle pouring oil in the pan and maybe the oil splattering a little bit, and he could handle frying an egg. Of course, it freed Mom up. There was a lot of reason why she probably had ulterior reasons for making sure that I knew how to cook an egg, but God bless her. She taught me how to cook an egg. I loved it, and I still can cook an egg. So where's the lack? Life is grand. I got eggs to cook. It's wonderful. Where's the lack at that large Facebook group? People complaining about the lack of guidelines and the lack of decorum and we shouldn't be having these discussions. And all I can think of, you're talking about scarcity and lack, and we got 51,400 people here. That's amazing abundance because people like free speech, basically. There's a small minority who are vocal about objecting to it, but the vast majority actually like the fact that they can talk about anything that's related to A Course in Miracles, that we don't have to limit the discussion. A Course in Miracles applies to everything. And ideas of scarcity around relationship too, challenge those. Our brothers and sisters are everywhere. We're here every Sunday. Come here and relate to us. There is no lack. Relationships are grand. Large A Course in Miracles groups are grand. Eggs are grand. There's no scarcity. And that's what miracles have to do with the price of eggs. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. That's my talk for today.
Open my eyes to see. Woke up my head to beat. Woke up my heart to be free. Woke up our world, you and me. I've opened up my heart. I'm at the start. I save the world. I save the world. I save the world. I save